He is losing control of the vehicle. They're now riding that right shoulder, so we'll see if he can maintain here. But it's going to be, I think his minutes are numbered here.
Right, and you've got an uneven surface there. It's an uneven. It's not something you want to drive on normal with all four working tires when you're on the shoulder. You've got all kinds of debris out there. You've got can be different levels of pavement, as we all know. Anybody who drives in Southern California, so. With basically, there goes the left rear tire. So
yeah,
now both rear
two tires gone, and yeah, he's really fighting with that steering wheel. You could tell he's really struggling to keep that vehicle going straight, but he's doing a fairly decent job considering the circumstances. But he is definitely fighting to maintain control.
Right, and I would anytime he turns, that's when he really is at risk for losing the whole thing.
Yeah, coming up on Escondido Canyon Road now, so he's squarely in the Santa Clarita Valley as he continues in the westbound direction, technically the southbound side of Sierra Highway, straddling all of those lanes, and we'll go ahead and widen out. You can see a number of LA County Sheriff's deputies ready to bring this to an end when he finally decides to give up, but they are not going to let an individual like this go very far at all. This is not a situation where they'll just put it into surveillance mode like we often see. This is not that type of situation. This guy is obviously posing a clear and present danger to law enforcement, any other motorists where there really haven't been many, but a clear and present danger overall here. They're going to take him down one way or the other.
And this began as a stolen vehicle, right? They caught up with him, they first kind of sounded the alarm or began the chase in Palmdale, and then he headed up the 14 and kind of went around. I guess went to the airport out there. Can you kind of retrace the steps of this thing?
Yeah, he was really zigzagging his way through the streets of Palmdale for quite some time before he ended up in the airport. He ran through a security fence, came out the other side, I think on 20th Street, and then ended up on the 14 freeway for some time. He got off the freeway temporarily, back on the freeway, and then once he got closer to Acton, he got off at Sierra Highway. So he has covered quite a bit of ground now, but now committed to, I think, is he on the 14 freeway now? He's actually made his way. At some point, he actually was able to jump onto the 14. So he was on Sierra Highway when we first joined you. I did not see when he entered the freeway, but he's now on the 14 freeway. So southbound side of the 14 freeway, which, wouldn't you know it, basically has the road entirely to himself. You see some moderate traffic on the northbound side of the 14 freeway, but southbound, fortunately for everybody involved here, that southbound side is completely empty. We have not heard any more reports of shots fired, but at one point he was getting trigger happy with that Tech 9, which is what it was reported to have been the weapon that they saw, and he was firing again at law enforcement on the ground and pointing to the helicopter as well. At that point, the LA County Sheriff's Sheriff's helicopter, I should say, had to gain altitude to make sure that they were safely out of his way. You can see we are pretty high as well, so we are in a safe position, but definitely something that we don't see very often. Obviously, a very dangerous person behind the wheel here, and still maintaining a decent amount of control here, considering he's only got 2 tires left. So still pushing 60 miles per hour, 2 tires left after 2 successful spike strips. Remarkable, Mark.
Really? And was it the 2 rear tire? Well, I know the left rear tire is out. Was it the right rear as well that went out?
It looked like it to me, but yeah, we can't confirm that. It looks like that front left tire is okay, or is still on there at least. But I'm going to presume that you're right, that it's that other rear tire. So if he's driving on 2 rear rims, you can only imagine how difficult it is. Not to mention the hood is partially obscuring the entire windshield.
Right.
So
we kind of forgot about that for a second.
We forgot about that hood. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just remarkable. Now he's really kind of staying in that center lane there, figuring out how to negotiate this vehicle, which is basically coming apart on him. But like I said, it's only a matter of time. And obviously, in a situation like this, time is on the side of law enforcement, so they'll just continue to keep their distance here. No reason to really agitate him. There's nobody else on the freeway in this part of the Santa Clarita Valley right now. He's got 2 tires left. and who knows how much gas left in the tank. So, you know, I think a pit maneuver is probably not a great option here, considering the condition of the vehicle. That could have adverse effects at the end of this pursuit, but anything's possible here in Los Angeles, Mark.
And as far as the road ahead of him, are there any big turns? Are there any places where he would be faced with making a decision about another freeway interchange, for example? Or there it is. There's something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's got Soledad Canyon. That's the next major one coming up, but it looks like well, we'll see here. He appears to be somewhat committed to the 14 freeway. Now, once he passes that, looking at my map, he'll have Sand Canyon Road as an option, and he could take this all the way down towards the Newhall Pass. He's got a couple of opportunities to exit, and if the vehicle gives him more problems, he may decide to take it off the freeway. But right now, and I got to say, you know, I mean, you can see there are definitely cars on the freeway, but they're all on the northbound side. The LA County Sheriff's Department and CHP, which, by the way, I cannot tell if they have officially taken over the pursuit. That primary unit right behind him, that's going to be the primary pursuing unit. Can't tell which agency it is. It looks like a sheriff's. Yeah, it looks like a sheriff's deputy to me.
A sheriff's car.
But they, you know, this is a luxury for them to have the freeway entirely wide open like this, and so much room to play with. You know, if he loses control, nobody's going to get hurt. They'll just be able to keep their distance and then make the felony stop and take him into custody, hopefully. But you know, anything can happen, and if he does get off, that's a whole other situation altogether. Right now, still committed to the 14 freeway. He bypassed Soledad. And like I said, the next exit opportunity is going to be Sand Canyon Road.
Okay. And he's southbound on the 14, the Antelope Valley Freeway, and going at a fairly reasonable speed, not a crazy speed. He can't really afford to go too fast. And I'm guessing he's probably got to stay on the freeway. If he tries to take an off-ramp, he's going to spin out with two tires gone, potentially.
So
yeah.
You know, we were assuming earlier that the gunfire was coming from the driver. Very possible that it was coming from the passenger. Now that we know there's a passenger in that front seat, and there is word now that he is once again pointing that gun. One of those people in that car are pointing the gun at that unit that you see on the right side of the screen there. So that's why you see him maintaining a little bit of distance, but he could clearly see a gun being pointed in his direction.
Wow, let's zoom in, see what we can see there. I know you're pretty high up.
We're pretty high up for obvious reasons, and it's obviously a dark colored vehicle with, I can't even tell from this vantage point whether that driver's side window is even open or not. Looks like that rear, actually looks like both the windows on this side, just judging from the glare there, looks like they're both up. So I have a feeling that that gunfire was coming from the passenger. That would make sense considering the driver has been maintaining control of this vehicle. I'm guessing that passenger is armed.
Right, and again, the hood has been blown back and is up and is actually impacting the windshield such that the driver's visibility is very limited. It's designed so that basically if this sort of thing happens, you can see a little bit out of the front of the vehicle and you immediately pull over. It's not meant for you to continue to drive any distance with this sort of a situation, but he's doing that, and at his peril. And as you pointed out, the spike strip has destroyed 2 of the tires on this vehicle. Do we know what kind it is? We been able to determine what kind of vehicle it is?
It looks like a compact Honda, maybe a Honda Civic or something like that. I could tell you now, as I look out the window from Air 7 HD, CHP has now shut down the freeway. They've now created a traffic break on the northbound side about 2 miles ahead of them, and they have now brought all traffic to a halt. The freeway is shut down in front of him on the northbound side, and I can see traffic still getting on up ahead on the southbound side. But however this ends up, they are preparing at least to have as much room to work with as possible, and now taking the danger off of the opposite side of the freeway. That northbound side is shut down. So a few more cars you'll see there going in the opposite direction, and that'll be about it, because they have literally shut down the freeway, I want to say, via Princessa Road.
Wow.
check that. Maybe Golden Valley. I think at Golden Valley is where they shut it down.
Okay, so what's ahead of him at this point?
He's still pointing that gun out the window. I'm sorry, Mark. Go ahead. What was that?
You're saying so. Where's the next kind of big freeway interchange that he would be approaching?
So he's at Via Princesa. Traffic shut down at Golden Valley. He could get off at Golden Valley, or he could get off at Newhall Avenue. Once he passes Newhall Avenue, that will basically commit him to the 5 freeway, and he will enter the Newhall Pass. This will enter LAPD jurisdiction once he gets into the San Fernando Valley. So that's what we're looking at here. Once again, you can see now both sides of the freeway completely empty. LA County Sheriff following overhead with their helicopter, and a plethora of ground units, black and whites, going for at least, there's got to be about at least 8 cars behind them.
Wow. Yeah, and the response is going to be robust, and it's going to stay that way. There's no way, as you pointed out.
Here's that break.
Okay.
There's that traffic break. You can see that's where the 14 is shut down. So he's going to pass a little bit of a backup there that's been created by that CHP unit, and he's continuing the pursuit past Golden Valley. So as I mentioned, the next one's going to be Newhall Avenue, and then the Newhall Pass.
Wow. And they're going to stay right with him. They can't let this guy go. As you pointed out, they can't just terminate this pursuit and let him head out, because that's just not going to work. Given the fact that he's armed and is apparently still aiming that weapon, as you were pointing out. So they're going to stick with this, and they're going to deal with this individual however it ends up. So far, though, at least the driving is not erratic. He's not weaving. He doesn't really have a reason to. I guess there's one, that's one part of it. He doesn't have, at this point, no reason to weave in and out, because there's nobody to weave around. And
right.
He wants to keep that thing as straight as possible, too.
Yeah, and I guess after a while, you kind of get the hang of it. You're fighting that wheel initially, trying to adjust, considering the vehicle's trying to pull him in a different direction with if he's riding on 2 rims in the rear, presumably, and this is a complete assumption that it's a rear wheel vehicle. It's remarkable that he's able to maintain the control that he's got and maintain the speeds that he's doing here, but he's definitely managed to negotiate those variables and continue to pretty much drive in a straight line. As you mentioned, he's kind of all over the paint, but there's really not a whole lot of traffic in his way here. And he is, well, you can see he's kind of drifting from lane to lane here, but with the freeway wide open like this, he can afford to do that. At least without getting into too much trouble.
Right. So southbound on the 14, if he continues this way, he's going to end up in the San Fernando Valley, which means that the LAPD would be involved in some way, if not with an airship, or probably with an airship at the very least, right? And we don't know whether they might have ground units get involved as well, heading into their jurisdiction. They might just be called upon to close the off-ramps or on-ramps to keep people out of the way of this thing. They're doing a pretty good job of doing that. You see, every time they go past an on-ramp, there's a unit down there that's blocking it, not letting people onto the freeway and keeping it so that he's not weaving around other drivers. I say that, and there's another driver. But they're trying to keep that to a minimum and have been fairly successful thus far at least keeping kind of a zone around him on the southbound lanes where there are few, if any, other drivers, because there's been gunplay, and they have to be extremely careful. 61,
you can see he's
an
almost showing signs of getting off there, but now he's really all over the road. He's got about 5 lanes, and he's using like all 5 of them now. So that may indicate that he's losing control, or maybe he's just trying to get a different view here. But he is now committed, I think, he's committed to the 14 freeway and eventually into the Newhall Pass here, which will merge onto the 5 freeway. So LAPD absolutely keeping an ear on all this, and they are prepared to get involved if he gets off of the freeway. CHP has taken over the pursuit, and for good measure, they have closed off all of those entrance ramps. As you indicated, all of those exits that he passed there were blocked, so you can't get onto the southbound side. They managed to shut down the northbound side. They may have to try and shut down the northbound side of the 5 freeway here once again. That worked pretty well, but now that he's passed that initial blockade, now they have to protect the people that are actually driving through Sylmar, and that part of town.
Mm-hmm. And this began with a stolen car. The pursuit began in the Palmdale area. The question is, obviously, that they're not just car thieves. There's no reason for car thieves to have a Tech 9 with them. So is there something else that these folks are involved with that had them stealing the car, or are they just heavily armed car thieves? We don't know. But apparently both of them are involved in this, or possibly involved in this, after reports that the passenger may be the one firing out the window at the pursuing officers and/or the helicopter operated by the LA County Sheriff's Department.
Back over to the right. If he stays on the right side there, he may have the opportunity to get onto the 5 freeway northbound. He may in fact do that. Now he's really hugging that right lane, and I think if we widen out a little more, we might be able to see where it splits off. Right there is where it splits off. So let's push back in there and see if he takes it. Looks like he's staying all the way over to the right, and no, committed. Yep. No, he committed to the southbound side. So staying on the southbound side of the 14, now on the 5 freeway as he enters the new Hall Pass.
Yep. Maybe he's thinking that if he gets into a sharp turn, as one might encounter on on an interchange, that he might lose control of the vehicle. That he might the rear might just kick out and it ends up spinning out.
And of course, the question now becomes who's in the back seat, if anybody. Is it just the 2 in the front, or do they have a whole party inside that car? Potentially people in the back seat. So all of these are factors. Now, who knows what other information law enforcement is working with? That's always an unknown for us up here. Don't know exactly what they're dealing with. As you mentioned, that grand theft auto charge may only be half the story, considering the nature of this pursuit, indicating we're on much more than just a regular joyride, and the weaponry we're talking about. It. Oh, starting to spark there.
Wow!
Looks
all
like that left front lost another tire, or maybe that was one of the original ones you lost. But he's really sparking now. South on the 5 freeway. Sparks flying off the front left wheel. He's on rims now, at least 2 rims, maybe 3 rims.
Yeah, he may have lost 3 tires.
He may have lost 3. He's shredding more, and still more rubber coming off of this vehicle. So time is running out here. Still southbound on the 5 freeway, and now moving over to the right lane. Sparks flying all over the paint here, over the gore point, losing control a little bit. And
now it looks like he's taking
slowing
a ramp.
down
What's he
dramatically. Doing? He's slowing down. That is still the 5 freeway. So he's on the main lines of the 5 freeway, and that looks like that. Look, he's basically riding the brakes. He's done. He's done.
All right. So now what happens?
Done. Okay. Now we'll see if he runs for it. There he goes. Driver out the driver's side. We'll stick with the driver. We know there's a passenger in there. He's rolling down an embankment. Now onto the northbound side.
Oh boy.
Northbound side of the freeway
he
here.
Could get hit by
jumping
a car
over
here
the
if he's
median.
not careful.
He could certainly get hit.
Boy.
Absolutely. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Watch
Oh
out.
boy. Oh boy. Oh. Oh.
He got hit.
Down.
He got clipped.
He's down. Oh.
Zoom out. Zoom
boy.
out.
Oh boy.
Zoom out.
Oh boy.
This guy's going to possibly get killed here.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So
he's still moving around down there.
All right.
I think today
He's
might
not
be
going to get
his
hit by a
lucky
car.
day.
Look at that. Got his leg busted.
But he could try and carjack somebody.
Sheriff's deputy got hit by the car.
That sheriff's deputy got hit by the car. Oh boy. This is a wrestling match in the middle of the northbound side of the 5 freeway.
He's got an injured leg. Got an injured leg. They're trying to stop traffic now. They're telling everybody to stop.
Frantically trying to stop traffic. We're on the 5 freeway at San Fernando Road. You saw one deputy got just basically clipped by a vehicle.
Wow.
That suspect took at least 1 hit, but then managed to get up. He tried to it almost looked like he was going to carjack one of those vehicles.
Somebody.
He was desperate. Absolutely
desperate. He was
desperate.
trying doors on at least one vehicle, trying to get in on the passenger side of at least one vehicle. He is still apparently resisting.
Still putting up a fight here. He is still putting up a struggle. Just looking at, look at this. They have several men on top of him trying to look at this.
They're swarming this guy.
He is swarming him, and they are still struggling to keep him down. They are struggling to keep this person down.
Wow, that was intense. That was frightening. I don't know if you did, you probably did. I thought we were going to watch somebody die right there just getting hit by a car.
Yeah, I mean, there was no way that any of those cars, we saw at least a dozen between his left and right. He was in the middle, he was splitting lanes there, trying to look for an opportunity to run across the freeway, and at least a dozen vehicles, at least a dozen vehicles fled right by him at speeds upwards of 60, 70 miles per hour. At one point he was clipped. I think he was clipped a second time, but he managed to get up, and that's when LA Sheriff's Department, those look like sheriff's deputies, all of them, that managed to basically jump him and eventually slow down traffic here. So a dramatic end to this pursuit, and we still don't know what happened to the passenger.
Right. So that is the question now. Somebody stayed behind in the car while this guy took off across the freeway. He made it all the way to the number 2 lane.
Yeah, I'm getting word from our assignment desk that the passenger has now surrendered with his hands up. So the passenger now being taken into custody, but look at this suspect who is laying on the freeway. Surely they have already called for a rescue ambulance.
Oh, they're picking him up.
It looks like they're picking him up, trying to carry him off of the freeway.
Right.
But he is in not too great a shape, although I could tell you from what I saw, he was able to get up before they did tackle him. So he had the strength to stand back up after being clipped at least once, maybe twice, and still put up a struggle once they took him down here. By the way, northbound side of the 5 freeway and southbound side completely shut down at San Fernando Road, creating quite a traffic jam in this area that will, I would guess, will remain shut down for some time after what we just saw play out on the freeway here. They're going to literally drag him into the back seat. Whether they're going to drive, I doubt they're going to drive him to the hospital, but they're probably going to wait for an ambulance, I would imagine. But look at this, just an incredibly dramatic end to this pursuit, Mark.
Yeah, it's funny. They didn't call for a rescue ambulance. They didn't call for an RA. They're stuffing him into the back of that sheriff's vehicle,
which is unusual. I don't recall ever seeing anything like that, and they still haven't cleared the original vehicle. So we've got a team of deputies with their guns trained on the vehicle. The passenger has given himself up. Well, he's still putting up a little bit of a struggle there, looks like. That's the passenger. But and they still haven't cleared the vehicle.
They haven't cleared the car.
There may very well be somebody in that back seat. But just judging from their posture here, they look very concerned.
Yeah. Well, shots have been fired from that vehicle early on at the early stages of this pursuit. And as far as they're concerned, it's not over. They've got 2 in custody, one of them injured. And now they're looking to see if there's an additional person in there who may have access to that Tech 9 or whatever weapon was being used and fired at pursuing officers. We are going to watch them as they move forward and clear this vehicle. Is this all CHP, or you got some tactical guys there? Looks like it's all sheriff's deputies. Looks
like all sheriff's deputies to me, but as you mentioned, they have to proceed with a lot of caution here, considering what we have seen. And looks like we'll look for them to hold up their 4 fingers. That will be a code 4.
Breaking the rear window.
Breaking the rear window. And they will not even give that code 4 until they pop the trunk, I believe, and make sure that that trunk is empty as well. But it looks like that it was just those 2 people inside the front seats of this car. But what an incredible pursuit here.
Wow.
Started in Palmdale, zigzagged his way through, ran through a security fence at Palmdale Airport. A wild pursuit with the car coming apart on the 14 freeway all the way through the Santa Clarita Valley, and then we now find ourselves in the Newhall Pass near Sylmar, just off of San Fernando Road on the 5 freeway. Southbound side of the 5 freeway shut down as they begin to clear this vehicle. The northbound side shut down after that driver jumped into oncoming traffic on foot, almost getting killed, and now in custody. And I would again assume that we should see ambulances pulling up here, not to mention that deputy who got clipped as well.
Yeah, trunk is cleared. It's code 4 now. There's suspect number 2, the passenger, who gave up willingly at the end of this pursuit after the car pulled over to the side. The tire, the rims were sparking. Looked like a fire was pretty much imminent with that vehicle. The guy pulled over, ran out, left his passenger in the vehicle to be apprehended by the LA County Sheriff's deputies who were pursuing. the driver, as we saw in a very dramatic and frightening
Push in
series
there,
of events.
Rob. Push in on the vehicle. Looks like they're pulling more guns out of the car.
Wow.
So
All right, let's take
I'm
a
hearing
look.
there are additional weapons inside the car that they're looking at. So we're going to try and push in there, and in a second, I think we'll be able to replay the end of the pursuit. You want to roll that? Are you ready to do? Let's take a look at that. Yeah.
There you go.
There he is, jumping. Okay, so this is after he came to a stop, lost control, and then came to a stop, jumped over the
the one that
median,
clipped
and
him.
that's where he got clipped once. And then he almost got clipped again. That was, I think, the second one. We pulled out there, but it looks like he's on his own 2 feet here, and finally cars started slowing down. So it looked like he got hit once, and then he tripped. You can see
Trying
him
to get in.
limping. Limping, trying to get into that car right there before they finally tackled him with cars blowing right by them. They wrestle him to the ground, struggling to keep him down, and you see all of those officers, those deputies, bringing traffic to a stop. But I mean, you know, when you're on the freeway driving along on the 5 at this time of the night, the last thing you expect to see is anything remotely like this. This is unusual, even by our standards here in Los Angeles, Mark. Never seen something quite like that.
Absolutely unbelievable. And the fact that no one got killed, none of the deputies, neither suspect got killed with running across the freeway. No one was hit by gunfire. This could have been so much worse in so many ways at so many different times. But now we're looking at the aftermath, and it's not too soon to talk about the aftermath of this pursuit. You've got traffic stopped on both sides, or at least on one side of the freeway, where this thing came to an end, and it's backing up pretty fast.
It sounds like that deputy is just fine, by the way. The deputy was not injured, but there is an ambulance on the way over here for the suspect himself, and that's the embankment that he jumped. He jumped basically right out of the driver's side vehicle the minute he came to a stop and literally rolled down that hill before he actually got to the other side of the freeway. And it looks like they might be doing an evidence search on that embankment now, maybe looking for even additional weapons. I heard a report of possibly a rifle in the front seat. We'll get some more description here in a little bit, but heavily armed individuals that were involved here, and it reiterates what you said. I mean, you know, this could have been so much worse at so many different points when you consider the types of individuals we're working with here.
Yeah, absolutely. Shots had been fired. This thing, came to an end. The shots, they could have shot it out with the deputies at that point once it ended, but the guy chose to run. But then running across a freeway, it's just, the odds are absolutely against you. Just as an aside, I saw someone about a year ago try to run across a freeway, the Hollywood freeway, on a weekend, and they didn't make it. And it was one of the most horrific things I have ever seen. I can still picture it in my mind. And that it really brought back those memories, seeing this guy out there, and it's just a miracle that he didn't get killed. It's really amazing. And that he was still, apparently had criminal intent. Still, after being hit by one car and obviously injuring his leg, he still was trying. You could see him trying to get into another vehicle. As I think it was a black coupe that was passing by slowly that had swerved.
Yeah.
And he looked like he was trying to get into it.
He did. The only thing stopping him was that he was on the passenger side. That was the closest vehicle that was slowing down. If he would have waited another minute, he could have gone to the driver's side of one of those oncoming vehicles and maybe had a better shot. Fortunately, he never had that opportunity, and he was, I think, a bit dazed and clearly limping as he was trying to carjack that vehicle. And we've seen, I can recall several times where we've seen, suspects jump out at the end. We think the pursuit's over. He jumps out, and we've seen them on live television carjack additional vehicles and then additional vehicles after that. I can recall in recent years seeing that at least a couple of times. So this, again, it just could have been so much worse. But fortunately for everybody involved here, it doesn't look like anybody is hurt except for that suspect.
Wow. Well, and everybody's going to live, and that is how that's how you want this sort of thing to end. everybody's okay, and the suspects are in custody. So we will have more on this, of course, on Eyewitness News at 11 o'clock. This is a situation that is still unfolding.